Six.
Welcome to this week's Wednesday Hangout. My name is Bill Gustin. I'm a captain with the Miami-Dade Fire Department in Southeast Florida. And today I am coming to you live from the Palm Beach County Fire Rescue Training Center in their video studios. Shortly I'm going to ask one of the captains that is the director of their officer development program to give a brief description of their curriculum. And but before that, let's go ahead and make some introductions here. I've been in the fire service since Moses, which is a long time. It's my 42nd year. I'm still a captain, a company officer with Miami-Dade, and I do a little bit of teaching. As I say, that's why I'm here. I'm very proud to be part of Palm Beach County's officer development program, and they do have a world-class program that my friend Larry is going to describe here shortly to you. And then if we could all make our own introductions. Pat, would you like to briefly make an introduction?
Absolutely. Pat Chevalier. I'm currently the Deputy Chief of the Edgewater Fire Department. I'm also a fire inspector in town. And you need anything else? That sounds it, right?
Well, you know, I'm getting ahead of myself, but what we're going to talk about is a fire that your department experienced, about a month ago, in which you lost a very large apartment complex of wood frame construction. And that is going to be our theme today. And we're very lucky to have you for that firsthand experience. And the next gentleman, Les, who's going to introduce himself, and he also is going to bring a lot to the table in terms of the fires in these types of lightweight wood frame apartment complexes.
Hello, name's Les Ennis. I'm retired from the City of Tampa Fire Department. Spent 20 years with them, had 11 years prior there, and still keeping my hands in the fire training, but I'm glad to be on. Thank you very much for the welcome to talk about these kinds of fires today. I appreciate it.
All right, and Mike, if you can, a brief introduction, and I think you have some announcements for us.
Yes, I do. Thank you, Bill. My name's Mike Dugan. I'm a retired captain from the New York City Fire Department. I did 27 years with New York City, and I write a lot for fire engineering, and I work very closely with our boss, my friend Bobby Hall. And I would like to give a shout out to Bobby's mom, just turned 90, and Bobby's mom was transported last night to the hospital. So I would just like everyone to keep her good wishes, keep her in your thoughts and prayers. And I would also like to give out a shout out to my sister Betsy, who is participating with me on Saturday in St. Baldrick's. My nephew Christopher is 13 years old and has undergone a radical operation for osteosarcoma, bone cancer. They took out part of his femur, his knee, and part of his tib-fib and put a prosthetic in. And my sister is shaving her head for a woman to do that. I'm shaving my mustache. Now, I haven't not been with a mustache since I was in junior high school, I think. So I'm giving up my mustache, and my sister's giving up her hair. So if anybody wants to find out about this, we're at St. Baldrick's. It's called Dugan Strong is the team, and it's for my nephew Christopher. Like I said, he's 13 years old and going through something no 13-year-old kid should have to go through. So those two shout-outs, thank you all very much for your support, your friendship, and your love, and I appreciate it. And I think we're going to have a great talk today. And Bill, I know you want to thank our sponsors for sponsoring this.
Yes, I do, and it's an easy endorsement because I do use Key Fire Hose on my company. It's manufactured in Dothan, Alabama, which is in LA. That's not Los Angeles, that's lower Alabama. And I believe it has the best balance of durability, great kink resistance, and remarkable flow capabilities in terms of friction loss. So it's an easy endorsement for me to make. Thank you, Key Hose, for sponsoring us, and you can reach Key Hose at keyhose.com. Now, before we get into our topic today, since I'm in somebody else's house for housekeeping, we're going to invite, we got a cameo guest. If you could move your chair over here, Captain Dolan, and I'd like to have you describe a little bit of the about your Officer Development Academy here at Palm Beach County, because it is indeed world-class.
Thank you very much for having me here, Bill. Bill's a world-class instructor, and he's an instructor in every one of our Officer Development Academies we've had so far. We had over 100 people go through last year. We have an Officer Development Academy for our lieutenants, who are the supervisors on our rescue trucks, like an ambulance. We have a Captain's Officer Development Academy, which is the supervisor of the fire engine and the station. Our EMS captains, this is what's going on right now. And then towards the end of the month, we have a district chief Officer Development Academy. It's a 2-week class. Each one is tailored to that specific rank. And this year we'll probably have 150, 160 people going through it. We've also had our reserve battalion officers go through it. I've been very happy with it so far. I've been given a great deal of freedom to set this up, and I get a lot of input from people in that rank and who are one rank above, and they've helped me design each one of these classes specifically. I've been very happy with it. A lot of the things I picked up at FDIC too I put in this, and a lot of it is the work that's been put forth by people who were in this job before me too, and I can't thank Captain Lowe and Dawson and Captain Mike Ellis enough. They did a great job laying the framework for me.
Can you tell us a little bit about the curriculum?
Each one is a little bit different. We've got a lot of strategies and tactics. We hit it pretty hard, especially with the single unit response, the EMS captain and the district chief, because they're going to be the ones on scene actually running the unit. The lieutenants and the captains, we've designed that over 2 weeks, and the lieutenants and captains there's a class leader, and then their class is divided up into companies. And then throughout the second week, the morning of the second week for the Captains and Lieutenants Academy, they're required to teach one company every morning, teaches the rest of the class a block of instruction. That has been very valuable. Your primary trainers in any fire department are your company officers, lieutenants, and captains.
Absolutely, absolutely.
I've worked in the training division for over a year now, and I don't know about your department, but every department I've seen, the training division doesn't have enough people to accomplish that mission. It's the individual firefighter's responsibility first, and it's the company officer to train those people. So giving them a chance to train on that is invaluable. We've got guest speakers come in. You just did a fantastic presentation. I was just in there this morning. Strategies and tactics tailored to those specific ranks. They're required to do a book report. It's just like a 5th grade book report. They have to read a book and stand up in front of everybody for 10 minutes and talk about it. It opens up, there's so many books out there on different topics of leadership, decision-making, organizational change. All those, Lieutenant Colonel David Grossman has written a lot of things on stress inoculation. I see the guys are shaking their heads. They're familiar with these kind of things. It's an excellent exposure to a lot of these things as a leader. Go ahead, sir.
I love the idea of a book report.
Yeah.
I think that's a great idea, and I'm going to give you a line that my father always says to me, and it took me a long time to get it, but readers are leaders. And I love that line.
Sounds like you've had my class. That's exactly the kind of stuff we try to stress. You've got to keep current. You never stop learning when you're in a leadership position in the fire service. It's imperative. The EMS captains that we have going through right now, I got with our medical director. We've got 5 companies in the class, and we have 5 presentations. They have to do a half-hour presentation with some cutting-edge EMS topics that the medical director has given us for the classes. It's things that you're not going to see the American Heart Association. Nothing wrong with them, but you're not going to see them touching this stuff for a couple of years. It's very progressive, and it gives a chance for these supervisors.
Okay. Did we lose Bill?
They froze up.
I think Bill dropped off. So we will see if you're back, Bill.
I'm here.
Okay, you dropped off a little bit there.
Okay, do you see me okay now?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, we're good. And how's Larry looking?
Great.
He looks great. Just ask him.
Okay.
He always looks good.
How's this?
You know, yeah. And you know, it's hard to believe that this is a hairpiece, but it is. And he wears it when he's swimming. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Why do you have to pan to the bald-headed guy? As soon as I say hairpiece, you pan to Pat.
Is that what happened?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Obviously, you went swimming and yours fell off.
I just did it nice for you guys.
Larry, thank you very much for being on.
Thanks for having me, Bill.
All right, sir.
Appreciate it very much.
All right, we're going to get to the matters at hand. Now, hopefully this is going to work. We're going to talk about a fire problem that is second only to wildland-urban interface as the biggest problem American fire service faces today, and that is fires in large wood frame apartment buildings, apartment complexes, and especially when they're under construction. Now, this is a firefighter's nightmare. Okay, this happens to be Central Florida. So if you'll just bear with me, when we look at this as firefighters, we are looking at a vertical lumber yard. As one of our guests is going to mention, you could have a firehouse across the street. When you get a fire in this type of building under construction, it doesn't go from the contents to the structure. It's a structure fire from the get-go. Now, this is a big topic of controversy. You see the plastic pipe sprinkler system. That is an NFPA-R residential sprinkler system, and in Edgewater, New Jersey, and Patrick is going to give his account, that sprinkler system did exactly what it was designed to do, and that is to protect the occupants, not to protect the building. This system does not discharge enough water to thwart a pack rat, a collier's mansion, a determined arsonist, or a fire that originates or extends into a concealed space. And the largest concealed space is that truss void in between the ceiling and the floor above, occupied by the web of those lightweight parallel cord trusses. Here's another idea, and Patrick, you're going to talk to us about the fire spread. Gentlemen and ladies, that is your wood frame, balloon frame construction of the 21st century. It's just that it's laid on its side. Again, it's protected in most cases with an NFPA 13R residential sprinkler system, but it's designed to protect the occupants, not to protect the building. You will find no sprinklers in bathrooms, closets, or any concealed spaces, most notably that truss void between the floor and the ceiling below and the entire cock loft. Now, this is Maitland Fire Rescue in the Central Florida area. This company gets out to this complex every day because every day things are going to change. That dumpster you see there could be moved in front of a hydrant. A vehicle or a backhoe could have knocked over a hydrant. Where they position this apparatus is going to be critical so that the fire apparatus does not become an exposure, as Les is going to explain to us in his experiences from Tampa. So they're doing what they need to do. And before this has non-combustible siding, what you're looking at is a vertical lumber yard. Now, this is what we call a pedestal construction. This is my hometown of Wheaton, Illinois. The first 2 floors will be your concrete construction, and they will probably be retail space or parking garage. And then from then on, as you can see in the background, it's all wood frame all the way up. And this is some high-end apartments. All over this country, this is happening. This is the new urban taxpayer. They're tearing down old, solid, ordinary constructed buildings and replacing them with these cheaply built vertical lumber yards. So what we're going to do is we're going to begin with an account of a fire that recently occurred in Edgewater, New Jersey. We're very lucky to have Patrick with us and explain some of the difficulties that they encountered from an operations and a rescue point of view. Patrick, if you could go ahead and take the floor.
And Bill?
Yes, sir.
just so we realize, this is one of the first ones I know of where the building was fully occupied at the time of the fire. And I think in the fire service, this is now a change. A lot of these fires that we've had in previous fires have been in unoccupied. And since then, there have been two more where people have been working with thawing pipes out with torches inside the walls and things like that, where they have started these fires. And I think that this is something that we have to realize, that as these buildings age, you know, they're under construction now. 5 to 10 years of normal wear and tear on that building, we're going to have a problem here. So, Pat, if you would, please.
Sure. It started off as a normal just 10:45, or that's what we thought. When we rolled up, I was the first one on scene. One of the maintenance guys met me outside and said they were doing some solder work in the wall. Walked inside to see the sprinkler in the hallway outside of the fire apartment had discharged, which was weird because there was no smoke or fire in the hallway. Opened up the door to a minor smoke condition. Radioed in for a general alarm. I had the chief and 2 fire inspectors responding in their cars behind me. And then I had the first truck was out a few minutes later, and we went right to work. What started off as what we thought was going to be a small fire turned out to be something that we had no idea was even happening in between those floors. We worked for a good amount of time inside trying to open up on both the first and second floor. And ultimately, after a while, we wound up pulling out twice, but the second time, the crews on the second floor said that the floor was so spongy, so we decided to pull everybody out. And then from there, unfortunately, went to a whole bunch of defensive operations. And in the meantime as well, we had 2 rescues. I don't know if we want to talk about them now, but we got a 911 call that a person was stuck on their balcony. So our fire official was able to go into one of the courtyards. There's different wings within the complex, and he was able to locate them. Members from our surrounding towns, Palisades, went to go rescue that person. They entered through the hallway, got to the person, and by the time they went to go out to the hallway, they were they couldn't make the hallway. We had to bring ladders to that floor to get not only the person we rescued, but also the crews off of that floor. So that was a close call. I mean, that's how quick it was moving, that they were able to enter the apartment through the hallway, but was not able to exit the apartment through the hallway. And the second one was an elderly woman that hadn't left her apartment, and members of the Englewood Fire Department and other surrounding town, they were able to go in there and actually carried the woman out to safety. So 2 rescues we had. Unfortunately, a lot of animals perished, which was hard trying to tell the residents of the complex, you know, that we're doing everything we can to try to get them. I mean, we did save a bunch of animals, but unfortunately there was a lot that didn't make it either. And trying to explain to them that you're setting up pieces so that you don't try to burn down the entire building, they don't want to hear that when they're talking about their loved animals. But you know, that's one of those hard things that you just have to deal with.
Patrick, I watched the video on Fire Engineering's website. It's compelling because it has the audio from your radio transmissions.
Mm-hmm.
And what struck me is that it did look like just a small fire. I see a little bit of white wispy smoke, and I can hear the chief officers talking to the companies operating inside, and there was talk about the fire is running the floors. It's running the floors. And still just white wispy smoke. But you had an inferno in there, but it was in a concealed space, I guess, in between the floor and the ceiling below. And as again, would you consider that to be as we say, the balloon frame construction of the 21st century? Just this one was horizontal.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I was the first one there. I backed out a little bit into it once the crews started working to get my own stuff on to come back in and help. I was bouncing between the first and second floor, trying to give the chief updates to see what we needed. I never personally saw fire inside of that building until we went defensive. So that was all on the walls. The second time we decided to pull everybody out. The first time we backed out just because we realized this was starting to get into a bigger event than initially planned. So we pulled everybody out, had a little sit-down talk with all the towns because there was a bunch of towns starting to come in. Got a new game plan where we're going to back down the hallway a little bit, try to open up and keep it just in that wing. And the second time we pulled out, somebody actually grabbed my shoulder, and 4 or 5 units down from the original fire floor on the second floor, not even the first floor, all of the window shades were melted. And this was right in the area where those guys were trying to open up. So right around that time is when we said, listen, we have to pull out. Somebody's going to get hurt, and that's what we did. So we went to defensive tactics at that point.
You know, and that's a tough call. That's a tough call because you have a lot of young firefighters that don't want to go defensive, and they tend to operate too long, too deep into a building, and it takes a leadership that you obviously had, and it takes experience to be able to say, hey, we recognize that what we're doing inside is not working. Let's stop doing what's being ineffective and possibly dangerous and change our strategy. And that takes some leadership in order to do that. So you did do that. And as it was, you had...
To be completely honest with you, I think if we knew what we knew now, we would have been out of that building a lot earlier than we did come out.
Point. Excellent point. Excellent. And, you know, and this is one of the lessons learned, Patrick and Les and everybody, is that you rolled up on this fire that was well involved in the building, but it was in concealed spaces, and you didn't know the full extent of it. And that's a great lesson learned, that you could have a heck of a lot more fire than meets the eye because it's all burning in concealed spaces. So excellent point. Excellent point.
How were the smoke conditions in the hall?
What's that?
What was the smoke conditions in the hallway when you went inside?
When I pulled up, there was 0 smoke in the hallway.
0.
That was odd to me when the sprinkler was discharged outside of that apartment. And even in the apartment when it first started, there wasn't much smoke. I could walk through the apartment and actually got to the bathroom where they were working with a minor smoke condition. I actually stayed at the apartment door until my guys came, just so that they can then, know exactly which apartment and take over before I went outside. But yeah, I mean, one of the biggest things that's been talked about with our fire is that the maintenance guys who did the work, whatever you want to say about that, they said that they called their supervisor. We don't know that happened. Our first call was the sprinkler and smoke alarm that went off. So however much time that fire started beforehand, we also didn't know. We didn't know that we were getting that much of a delayed jump on it. And like I said, I never thought, I thought we were going to a small minor fire. Once I saw what it was, never thought I'd be there for 4 days.
Okay.
So.
Pat, I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
First off, the sprinkler head popped outside the apartment. Did you feel any heat in the hallway? Because, normal sprinkler head 135 to 150, 160. Did you feel any higher heat there? That's number one. And number two is, when the people were in the hallway to make that rescue, they went in, got in there, and they came back out. What do you think the time frame was that it went from tenable in the hallways to untenable? How quickly?
The first part of your question, I'm not positive that the head actually did pop in the hallway.
Okay.
I assume that it did initially, but the way the sprinkler system is, it might have just been so hot that at some point it melted the piping.
Okay.
So I don't know any reason why the sprinkler head would have went off in the hallway since there was no smoke or fire. So me personally, I think that it probably melted, and that's why the water was coming out. And I just assumed initially that the sprinkler was, activated in the hallway. And the second, the 2 rescues at that point, the guys who went in, there was a little bit of a time delay in getting them off the balcony because of the multiple courtyards. So we had to try to figure out which courtyard they were in. So when they went into the fire apartment, the guy was already on the balcony for the first rescue when the guys made their way into the apartment. It wasn't probably a few minutes before they were on the balcony because they couldn't make their way out. And it took a few minutes to get a ladder because we had to try to figure out which courtyard they were in. So like I said, our fire official was able to locate them and then let us know which courtyard we're going to. And the second one, luckily, it was only a few units away from one of the main entrances on Undercliff Avenue, so they were able to go in relatively easily, get the woman, put her over their shoulder, and pull her out. We actually got a really nice picture of the woman getting pulled out. So time frame wise on them, not too long, luckily, but they were probably 10 minutes apart, if not maybe a little longer than that. So.
Okay. And the conditions, I mean, because I think that's one of the things we are going to see in the American Fire Service in these newer buildings, is that the conditions, rapid fire progression is the term I'm using for it, okay? Because the sprinklers, it's in the void spaces and everything else. And like you said, I wasn't sure if the pipe, because I know a lot of them, the pipe lets go with the joint, and that's what causes the sprinkler head. But the fires progress so quickly. It's such a rapid fire progression that there's so much wood up there exposed with the surface area of the wood that the fires just dramatically get hotter faster in these types of buildings.
We were able to get a crew up to the second floor on the apartment above, and we had them chipping out the bathroom tiles, and we got a hose line up to that second floor through the window and was spraying down. And still at that point, I was thinking, okay, great. We're going to be able to knock this down by, spraying it from above. Guys are opening it up below. But still, even those efforts didn't, it was unfortunately too far gone by then.
Confirm that this fire was started by maintenance workers that were sweating pipe with a torch. Is that correct?
Yes, they were doing a minor repair on the pipe work going from the shower handle up to the shower head. They were just doing a minor repair. And that's the story they told us as soon as I pulled up. The maintenance men there are actually very good. Usually when we show up to a fire call there, one of them will meet us outside just to let us know. We actually had a fire alarm at Avalon that morning in the other building, and the same thing, a maintenance man met us right outside, said they were working on the HVAC unit, a little smoke, everything worked out fine, but this time, same thing, one of the guys met me outside. I said, what do you got? And he says, oh, we were doing some soldering work in the bathroom. So I said, okay, show me. Walked around.
Now, Pat, did the fire naturally follow the piping from floor to floor?
To be honest with you, we had a lot of smoke on the first floor as it started going, and then it seemed like out of the blue there was tons of smoke then on the second floor as well, because we initially started evacuating the first floor once we got more units in there, and we did a really good job of evacuating most of the first floor units and accounting for those people. The second floor was kind of like a rush deal. The next thing you know, it started turning, smoky and black faster than we had anticipated. So then it was like a rush to try to get these apartments, knocked on and get these people out of there. So, yes.
Let's say that the occupancy of this building was an adult congregate senior living facility, where you had people that depend on walkers, wheelchairs, they may be bedridden, and they cannot self-evacuate. Our strategy with those types of buildings is we rely upon a sprinkler system and fire-resistive compartmentation to protect in place, because we can't physically rescue everybody in short order. We have to go after the fire. And many times the best way to protect the life in these buildings is to take the harm away from the people rather than take the people out of the harm. Had this building been occupied by people that could not self-evacuate, what would have been the magnitude of the loss of life, in your estimation?
I think it would have been a lot more. Obviously, I think this fire itself, we got very lucky with the time of day. Edgewater has turned into a very city-minded town. A lot of the people who live here commute to the city, since we're right across the water. So most of the people were still at work, luckily. If this fire was, 2 o'clock in the morning, it would probably be a lot different as well. We got lucky with a lot of people not being there, and we got lucky with a lot of people coming out initially with the fire alarms. But that doesn't happen everywhere.
No, it scares the dickens out of me that they're building these buildings all over the country, and many of them are occupied by people that are not going to self-evacuate, and we are not going to have the degree of fire separation as Mike was discussing, and the combustibility, the rapid fire spread is not going to allow us to implement a protect-in-place strategy. So we're going to have to go after the fire and initiate rescues, and for a lot of this country, it's very difficult for them to do both at the same time.
That's a lot of manpower.
Yes. I don't know how it is for you guys, but a lot of the problem not even is just with the adult community. It's the entire community. You get so many 1045 activated fire alarms, people get tired of leaving their apartment for no reason. That's part of the problem as well. It's not just necessarily people who aren't disabled or who can't get out, or a lot of it is people don't want to get out. You go to the same buildings all the time for silly things, and people aren't feel like they don't want to waste their time leaving, which unfortunately is a shame. But we have seen, at least in my opinion, a few more people leaving for 1045s than we did since Avalon than we did before, which is unfortunately this happened.
Well, Pat,
something good.
I want to say something before we go much further. I want to thank again Key Fire Hose for sponsoring this. They can be found at keyfire.com. If my buddy Bill Gustin says it's a good hose, as an engineman par excellence, I believe him. Also, anything he tells me about EMS, I believe, because he is an EMS responder, and I know he's good at it. But I just want to thank Key Fire Hose again for sponsoring this hangout for us today and spreading the word to the fire service. And again, it's keyfire.com. Thank you.
Well, Pat, if you could, for a couple of minutes, knowing what you know now, 20/20 hindsight, what would you advise our brothers and sisters that have this type of construction in their jurisdiction, knowing what you learned from that fire?
I guess the biggest thing would be to try to know exactly where it is. If that was in the actual unit, it would have been a lot different fire. I probably wouldn't be talking to you guys right now. But if we were able to get every resource we could to start opening up faster, maybe we would have known the extent of the fire, where it was, and whether that would have changed what we did, I don't really know. But, I mean, knowing now, we didn't know, at least I didn't know personally, how far that fire was and where it was while we were in there. Like I said, it was probably way ahead of us, above our heads the entire time as we were trying to open up, and we had no idea. Those guys from very early on, our Cliffside and Fort Lee brothers and sisters were on the second floor at one point, and they said they would put their axe down and it was spongy. So, I mean, that's one of the reasons we decided that everyone has to come out.
Piercing nozzles would have been of any benefit?
I don't know. That's a good question. If we were able to get them up through the sheetrock in certain spots, maybe. I mean, it definitely would have been worth a try. But, I don't know. That's a good question.
I think that's the lesson learned, I think, is, you stopped me before. You said, well, knowing what we know now, it's the fire's burning in concealed spaces, so you didn't really know the full extent, and maybe you didn't realize the potential. And that's what I'm taking away from this, and I think that's what this is what we all can take away from this. And Pat, thanks very much for your account. As I said, we just scratched the surface with this. We wanted to talk about operations. We wanted to talk about rescue. Hopefully, you're going to come back again, and we're going to go into more detail.
Sure.
What I'd like to do now is we went from a guy that doesn't have any hair on his head to a guy that has more hair on his head, if you consider it's just not distributed evenly. We're going to talk to Les Ennis, retired firefighter from Tampa, who's going to give us an account of the Ybor City conflagration. Go ahead, Les.
Well, thank you again. I appreciate that. May 19th, 2000, We had in a little area in Tampa, it's called Ybor City. It's an older section of town. It's kind of like the French Quarter of New Orleans, and they're rejuvenating, building up the area, trying to get it back. Even though the area's a little old, and that just lets you know about the water problems that we're going to talk about later. We had a 456 apartment complex being built in there. It took up about 4 city blocks, basically. The fire started about 9 a.m. in the morning. The building was under construction. None of the fire-resistant protection, everything else is put in there. All the drywalling and everything else was stacked on the floors in each apartment that they were getting ready to do this. I'm trying to recount what the type of construction is, but they just built it all in one. You know, they built one section, then they added on, and there was a name for it, but it's ordinary wood frame construction with the OSB outside. About 9 o'clock, 8:56, the alarm came in for a trash fire from the Ybor City Brewing Company. A lift that was lifting up roof joists, trusses into the building, hit a power line. Power lines arced, the arcs came down, sparks started a small trash fire. The alarm came in. Unfortunately, engine 4, which is less than a block away, was at the radio shop that morning to go get their radio repair done. So the next due company was engine 6. Their response time was about 4 minutes and 56 seconds into the fire. Once they got there, the fire progressed through the trash and up to a palm tree and into the building, gained head in the building. They immediately opened up with their deck guns on the truck trying to knock this fire down, but it already had a good head on them. They called in the alarm. I was from the first due truck company. The alarm came in, trash fire. So we thought we were just going to a trash fire, which was kind of queried by us, but we responded down there. We got into Ybor, and as we pulled up, there was heavy fire conditions, and it took off. Everybody knows about this OSB, is a glued particle wood board. So the fire was really gone. The weather conditions that day, we had a good breeze. It's very hot and very dry, which lent to the fire taking off so rapidly. The corner we pulled up on became very, very dangerous. We had 69,000 volt power lines that blew on the top edge, so we repositioned ourselves to try and make a stop in 19th Street, which is a street in between the 4 blocks. But the fire it moved so rapidly, so fast through this wood, along with the breeze and the heat, that it ended up consuming all 4 blocks. But they say it's all wood frame. They say it's a huge standing lumber yard. They had the sheeting put on the outside, but none of the drywalling, anything like that. So it was just solid lumber. We had no rescue problems there. Once the fire had started, the workers themselves evacuated very quickly. But we did have a lot of exposure problems. Like I said, it was a small, intimate area. We had large wood timber area buildings around their exposures. It was like a forest fire. And I talked about when you get into forest fires and the crown fires and how you could hear it coming like a train. Well, this is basically the same. When we repositioned ourselves for the second time, we could hear the fire coming as that off-gassing from that wood, and the radiant heat, it jumped across the street and just exploded, and it just almost simultaneously, the second set of buildings lit off. And it's a picture I can hopefully show you a little bit here, showing where our position was at and how fast and rapid the fire came across the street and took off. So it was chasing us. We weren't chasing it. So basically it came into a very defensive, protect the exposures as much as we can and try to limit the area. We kind of at that time wrote off the apartments themselves, and it came into surrounding it and protecting it, the rest of the buildings in that area.
Yes, did you burn up any apparatus, damage any apparatus?
Yes, there were several apparatus that we had, cracked windshields, melted lights, and stuff like that. Our truck company ourselves, when we were on the street there, it got so hard. We had temperatures at 1,200 to 1,500 degrees. Flames are probably about 100, estimated between 100 to 200 feet in the air. You know, it was a 3-story wood frame, 460 apartments. They say 456 apartments. The positioning of the apparatus, we tried to get it as best as we could. But yeah, we had cracked windshields, a lot of melted lights, bubble paint, stuff like that. Yeah.
How about the water supply?
Water supply had been changing there. When I first started the fire department there, it was an older part of the city, and it was rumored they still had old wood mains down there, 4-inch wood log mains in some of the older parts of Ybor City. But where this was expanding out, there was new water mains in there. But yes, water supply was a problem because we had so much apparatus in there trying to surround this and put the water out. A call was put out to the water department to boost the pressure in that area to give us more water.
And did you have your engines positioned directly on the hydrant, connected directly to the hydrants?
A lot of them, yes. Yeah, we just basically had this the hydrant system around the area where the guys were hooked up to it and pumping them out. We had several mutual aid companies come in to help us out because it was just it was moving so fast that we had to, and it was as in Edgewater there that manpower, trying to get that much manpower there to stop something that fast, moving that fast, that rapidly, it was very intense, and the water source and everything else was set up, and it was a challenge, that's for sure.
This is a mistake, and my department makes it as well. I can air my dirty laundry in public. Is that we rely very heavily on large diameter hose, and we rely very heavily on forward hose lays from hydrant to fire. Well,
Yes.
There's friction loss in large diameter hose, and when you have a tremendous demand for water, you're going to need every drop that's available from that hydrant. And the only way to get that is to have that apparatus, that engine, connected directly to the hydrant by more than one outlet. Sure, you're going to connect to the 4.5-inch steamer connection. Put a gate on there so you can subsequently connect 3-inch lines or whatever, so you can get as much water as you can out of that hydrant. That's no place for a forward lay where you're relying on hydrant pressure to overcome the friction loss in your hose if you laid it from hydrant to fire.
Early in my career in New York City, when I was promoted to lieutenant, I was assigned to, I was UFO until further orders in the Maxi Water Unit, Engine 207, in Brooklyn, New York. And one of the things that we had a plan for is getting someone with water resources, an officer in charge of water resources, to the fire, and they have to plan out the mains, because if you hook up to the same main that the first-in pumper is on and you're a block behind it, but you're on the same water main, the pumper that's behind it is going to draw out the water that the first-in engine needs more than anybody. So we have to have a plan as to where we're going to hook up our other units, and that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Les, did you have some pictures that you wanted to show us?
Yeah, I would show pictures here. I got the one picture here of this is an initial picture of when Truck 1 first rolled up on the scene. This is the conditions that we had. This is probably less than 5 minutes after the first engine company got on scene and put it up. I don't know if we can see it right here.
Wow.
Truck 1, you can see the fire conditions right there.
Yeah, you know you're having a bad day.
Yeah, it's our company officer right there communicating with the engine company officer. There's a hydrant right off to the side there. He's kind of taking that hydrant up. Right behind us on that side is where one of our first major exposure was the Ybor City Brewing Company. It was old mill construction, and the fire eventually got in there and got up into the cough loft, the attic space there, and we had a couple companies go in there and took control of that fire and took it down. I'll show you a picture now of money. We were there. I can say that 69,000 volt line let go. We knew it was not time for us to be there, so we took off. But I'll show you. This picture was taken right afterwards. When I talk about how fast the fire spread went, here's the back of engine 10 where we were sitting, and that's the fire condition that we left. They came out. You can see it.
Wow.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now, you did say
large power pole.
And as we talked about, Les, in our previous phone conversations. Anywhere in the state of Florida, that's an infamous fire. And they talk about, well, Tampa burned down 4 city blocks of these buildings and burned down the post office. But what we don't know as well is the amount of property that you fellas did save under very, very difficult conditions. Could you talk to us about that, the buildings you did save?
Yeah, well, I just let you know here, I just wrote these down. These are the exposures that we did have. And I'll start off on the east side. We had the Ybor City Brewing Company, which was heavy timber construction. We also had the new apartments, some more apartments that were under construction. They said we had a wind out of the east. So everything basically to the east of the apartments, and there's a picture that we can show the apartments are still standing. Anything under the apartments to the east that had the natural break of the road there, we pretty much saved that, and we got that taken care of. Also, we had the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office on the southeast east corner. That was normal construction, wood frame construction. Also on the south side, we had the Olivia Tobacco Company, which was just a large, heavy timber warehouse slapped full of tobacco. Ybor City is known for its cigars, you know, the Cuban cigar. You know, well, it used to be Cuban cigars. It's a Cuban community, but they still have a lot of tobacco and a lot of cigar companies there. So that was on the immediate south side, and we saved that with some minor damage. Also, there was a group of homes there. Like I say, Ybor City was at a historical area. We had a whole group of historical homes that had been saved from the old Ybor. There was a fire in Ybor City in 1908. It started about 2 blocks away from this one, started right here back in 1908, which was a major conflagration also. So these homes are saved from that time. So that's like a museum where they have these old homes. That was right beside the tobacco company. Also on the south side, we had a brand new Hilton Garden Inn hotel. That was nice, basically on the southwest corner. The hotel was a little bit further away. We had a lot of guests, but that was the direction the fire was heading. So we had that as a protection, a possible exposure. Also on the west side now where the fire was heading, we had the Our Lady of Perpetual Church and Academy, and of course the outbuildings and storage with the church that was there. Also in front of the church was the construction trailers where these all the blueprints and everything else, and the construction offices and everything else for the post apartments. Those were parked in the street in front of the church. We managed to get all the drawings and stuff, most of all the drawings and everything else out for the apartments, because they've rebuilt since then. Got them out of the trailer before the trailers were there. We lost the trailers because there was just so much radiant heat there. Also on the north side, we had the U-Haul storage. It was a heavy timber, 3-story brick building that had been there for quite some time, and had a large water tower. But the biggest part of the U-Haul storage, we had a 5,000 gallon LP tank that was sitting right there alongside the road on the north side, which was a major exposure. We had to have companies dedicated just to that to stop that from oblivion. And then, of course, on the north side, down towards where the official fire started, was the U.S. Postal Office. That was on the north side, and that was a new construction type building. The post office itself was not sprinkled. It had a tin roof. Had been built in a design to fit into the Ybor City, the Spanish look. So they had the thing. Even the firehouse looks like it's going to have the Spanish theme and everything else to it. So the post office was right there, basically in the northeast corner of where these apartments were, and that's where the post office was the one exposure we lost. Even though we had companies assigned to there that had been fighting the fire in the brewing company, in the brewery, we had a chief officer there was still concerned because there was so much radiant heat. They'd open up lines on the roof, on the tin roof, and the water would sizzle, boil. So they knew they had some heat there from that was being retained in there. We got on scene about 9 o'clock, and it was 11 o'clock roughly when we got to the Ybor. We finally got around to where our position was on the post office when the post office went up. So to lay into the construction and everything else of the post office, I can talk about that later, why we had a problem with that as being an exposure.
You know, I think it speaks volumes also for the desire and the dedication of the firefighters in Tampa. The Tampa firefighters that I know are all in great physical condition because operating in that type
Tony.
Yeah, well, he's one of them, and there must be an emphasis placed on physical fitness in that job because you guys took a tremendous beating, both in the heat from the fire and the ambient heat of the day, and this was very personnel intensive, and yet you sustained. And you persevered.
Like I said, we had a lot of help come in, mutual aid and everything else, and we had a lot of off-duty firefighters. You could see that fire, no matter where you stuck your head out in Tampa, you could see that column of smoke. We had a lot of off-duty firefighters that responded in there, and that went to the stations, got their gear, reported to the staging areas, and volunteered their help. I mean, we got everything from them working in the rehab areas to joining their companies on scene. I had one firefighter with the truck company. He wasn't on duty that day. Matter of fact, I wasn't even supposed to be on duty that day. I was in mutual aid or helping a guy out doing his medical. He'd gone to the hospital to do his paramedic training, so I was filling in for him. Well, the guy I usually work with as a firefighter in the truck, he showed up, and next thing I know, I was working beside him in the post office. You know, so we had a lot of folks that stop by on their own with their gear and everything else, and help out. So it was there was a lot of help from a lot of places too. I mean, there's I'm sure, you know, with the regular duty day that day we've not been able to contain that fire with just what we had.
And you know, the other thing I think we should bring up is, just so everybody knows, because I don't know if you remember back, what year did yours burn down, Pat, when it was under construction? I think it had to be like 99, 2000?
2000.
2000, because they put the sprinklers in. I don't think that place was originally going to be sprinklered until they had the fire in 2000 in the Avalon Bay complex. And I think the sprinklers came in when they rebuilt it. So again, that place has burnt down twice.
Twice.
And the sprinklers, before sprinklers and after sprinklers. And I think that to me is one of the major takeaways from this, is that even if you have the sprinklers, depending on where the fire gets its foothold, if it's in a wall without any of the plastic pipe, I mean, the plastic pipe melts, it breaks its seams and everything else, and if there's fire in that area, the plastic pipe will put it out. But if the fire is in a wall without the sprinkler pipes in it, without a pipe chase in it, and the fire gets any kind of headway and gets up to that attic space, we are going to have a major, major issue if we do not have laws or building owners who want to go back, or insurance companies mandating that the void space is protected.
A very compelling editorial that was written in your local newspaper by Glenn Corbett, who is the technical editor for fire engineering, and he's also the chair of the John Jay Fire Engineering Program in New York. And he says there's two things that have to be done. The buildings are going to have to be totally sprinklered, and there is going to have to be masonry firewalls from the foundation all the way up past the roof in a parapet to limit the potential volume of fire to something that is within the suppression capabilities of the fire department. I'm going to pose a question to you, Mike. Had that fire occurred in the jurisdiction of the FDNY, both the fire in Tampa and the fire in Edgewater, had that fire occurred within the jurisdiction of the FDNY, do you think the outcome would have been any different?
No, absolutely not. I mean, we have resources. We are, my joke is, we are the Chinese army. We can just keep calling people to come in over the hill because we have so many units in the city of New York. But no, with the radiant heat, with the fire spread, we have had fires in lightweight constructed buildings, occupied buildings, where the buildings have collapsed. You cannot put your people at risk in those buildings. Once you know the fire is out of the contents and it's into the structure and it's limiting those structural members, especially on floors where firemen are walking and we impact load of all of us in our Superman outfits, or you have a fireman hooking a ceiling. And again, it's trusses that are joined together, they're assisted together, and somebody's pulling up there, and all of a sudden those trusses can cause a collapse. You cannot it's not worth the risk. Once everybody is out of that structure, Bill, I'm sorry, we didn't build the structure. If the fire happens, it's going to happen. Once the rescues have been made, it's a totally different operation. And I think that's something that everyone should recognize. And I do not think, even with the manpower, the number of tower ladders we have, and everything else, I do not think the outcome would have been any different in the New York City Fire Department.
These fires have got to be fought on the drawing board during the code enforcement and compliant process. Sometimes I think there's a disconnect between fire suppression personnel and fire prevention personnel, because we have to realize that we have limitations and we cannot allow a fire to grow beyond those the magnitude that is it'll be beyond our suppression capabilities. I think this has been a great, very fast hour, and I really appreciate everybody participating today. I want Pat and Les to come back. I think we have a lot more lessons to be learned, and I think we're just scratched the surface on, again, what I think is one of the largest fire problems that faces the United States Fire Service today. I also want to thank Key Fire Hose. That's keyfire.com, and again, it's an easy endorsement for me because it is a very fine product. Again, a good match of durability, maneuverability, good flow capability, abrasion and heat resistance. So that's an easy endorsement for me. So on behalf of everybody, Pat, Les, Mike, all our thoughts and prayers to Bobby's mom and your relatives, Mike. I think we've spent a real productive afternoon, and to all our brothers and sisters, be safe and be careful.